As the season progressed, the last month of the season, I was literally playing the game on Sunday night, going into a hospital. They would put a central line, IV line, in my neck. I would stay in the hospital all week. The only food I got, the only nutrition I got was through the IV. I would be released, play the game on Sunday, and go back in the hospital Sunday night. So for a month, that's how I was living. I wasn't living, I was existing. I was trying to get to the next day. If you look at my statistics, I would play 10 years in the league. This was my second season. There should have been a footnote that this young kicker was dying. I was dying. That off season, I did everything I could to try to understand my illness. I tried every remedy, every traditional therapy, every Eastern therapy, anything I could, and convinced myself I was getting better. Came back the next season, 4 games into it, collapsed on a flight home, landed the plane, they took me to the hospital, I needed surgery, the complication, I had a second surgery, and I woke up in the same hospital where my father was teaching and working with 2 ostomy bags on my side, weighing 123 pounds. I'd lost 65 pounds. And the doctors were telling my father that night, we're not sure your son will survive the night. I was so sick, I was so compromised that I was actually very ready to go and make peace with the Lord, wrestle with, is there a God, determine there was it peace, and then I was allowed to live. And I started to recover. I was 7 weeks in the hospital, released to the care of my parents, and then I started to recover. I was fortunately still being employed by the Chargers. My contract was still in place, which allowed me then to go to the facility and get rehabilitated. And I had a coach put his arm around me, figuratively, and say, we're going to get you back to healthy. Now, literally, the first thing he did was give me a 2-pound dumbbell. I couldn't curl more than a 2-pound dumbbell. I was an absolute skeleton, and that was the beginning. And I will tell you, there were so many days where I said, I can't do this. I cannot do this. The mountain that I had to climb seemed so high that there was no way I could do this. Now, what changed for me was in the process of recovering and wrestling with my life and what to do with it, I read a book that profoundly changed my life. It was written by a POW named Jerry Coffey, who would spend 7 years and 3 months in these POW camps that you may have read about, the Hanoi Hilton and the zoo, and where our GIs were kept, where they were abused, tortured, beaten, not fed any food. It was horrific. When you read about what happened to our GIs, it makes you angry, and then it makes you amazed that anybody survived at all. And this guy wrote a book called Beyond Survival. It wasn't just surviving, it was they had to come out changed, and they did. And he shared in it things that allowed them to do that I began to apply to my life. That if you think about your business and what you do, it's very similar. So the first was they had to figure out how to get through the day. They knew every day they were going to be beaten and tortured. They had to figure out how to get through the day. They couldn't worry about tomorrow, and they certainly couldn't think about a week from now. So how do you break time into bite-sized increments to get through it? That became, for me, very relevant. I had to figure out how to get through the day. I was 124 pounds. I didn't know how my bags worked. I was struggling. How do you get through the day? The second thing they had to learn to do was they had to make small, achievable goals that they could celebrate and mark. And as an athlete, we do that all the time. We do 10 reps, 3 times 10. We do 10 hundreds, whatever the goal is, and we do it. My first goals became, how do I get out of bed in the morning? And I couldn't do it with the help of a rope that my dad tied at the foot of my bed because I had no stomach. I couldn't roll my legs out of bed, but I could use my arms. And then walk to the mailbox and back. And the next day, I decided I was going to walk 2 mailboxes and back. And then 3. And pretty soon I was shuffling to the end of the street. I mean, I wasn't walking. You know, when you have no abdominal muscles, and my abdomen was still sewn together with wire, you kind of shuffle like this. You can't stand up. But I was shuffling to the end of the street, and I was checking off the goals, and I was getting somewhere.